Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Hope you're all having a good afternoon. This is the East Midlands Combined County Authority, and we are doing a launch of the Strategic Skills Plan and the Adult Skills Fund procurement. So if you think that's what you're doing, you're in the right place. It's really nice to see you. It's really nice for you to be here. I can't actually see anybody at the moment, but I assume that you can see me and some of the colleagues on the call, to which we'll just do some brief introductions if that's okay. So my name is Damien Dacey. I am the Interim Deputy Chief Executive of the EMCCA, as we call it. It's really nice just to kick off this session and to be able to introduce some of my colleagues. So I will turn first to Craig.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Craig Moffat. I'm the Head of Adult Skills Programmes. My responsibility is to implement the new Adult Skills Fund, which we're going to talk to you all about in a few minutes. But also I manage and run the Skills Bootcamps programme to align all the provision up. That's me, thank you.
Great.
Hello.
Craig. Pippa.
Hello, my name is Pippa Proctor. I'm the Performance and Relationship Lead for the East Midlands Combined County Authority, and I'll be presenting around our performance and relationship approach.
Great. Vicky?
Hello everybody, my name is Vicky Lear. I'm a Senior Procurement Officer. I work for Nottinghamshire County Council, but we are currently providing the procurement function for EMCCA. I am leading on the procurement of the Adult Skills project, so I'm going to do a presentation about how we're actually going to procure these services.
That's great. Liana?
Sorry. Hi everyone, I'm Liana Mason. I am the ASF Project Officer and I am supporting Craig and Pippa set up the Adult Skills Fund.
Great. Last but not least, Adam.
Hi everyone, my name's Adam Swirsky. I'm the new Interim Director of Skills and Employment for EMCCA.
Great. Well, that's us. And thank you, everybody, for making those introductions. I think we'll get started, and I think I'm going to start us off with a introduction to this work and this program of activity. But first and foremost, if you do have any questions, I think there was a previous slide on there, Pippa. If you do have any questions, then we can just put that back up there during the event. Then please forward them to Vicky. Is what we're doing, I think, and we will collate responses. Great. Okay, so I'm going to speak for a few minutes just to try and set the scene as much as I can. I'm not Richard Grice. I'm David Dacey, but it's because Richard did this earlier, and a bit of the context, if you like, both for the economy and the region a bit more broadly. So I'm sure this will be very, very familiar to many of the people on the call, but just in case. So the East Midlands Combined County Authority is the geography over which the Adult Skills Fund is being commissioned over. So that is effectively the historic counties of Derbyshire and Nottinghamshire. So currently, in terms of the upper tier local authorities that we cover, that we are constituent members of our board, it's the City of Nottingham, City of Derby, Derbyshire County Council and Nottinghamshire County Council. So it's those areas, and obviously we work very closely with them and the wider community of local authorities in the 15 district and boroughs over that 4.784 square kilometres. I think there's a unit. Anyway, there we go. So we have 1.4 million people of working age. It's a large and diverse region. It's very centrally located. They do say, in these Midlands you can get to everywhere. So you're a 4-hour drive within 80% of the population, a very broad industrial base, and so on and so on. So this is a really important context for the commissioning, our planning around strategic skills, but also for specifically how we design the outcomes that we are seeking through this commissioning on the Adult Skills Fund. Next slide, please, Pippa. Great. Inclusive growth. So to what ends are the kinds of activities, including the Adult Skills Fund, serving for the region? So the leadership of the combined authority, which is its board, the mayor and the leaders and deputy leaders of those 4 constituent councils. In addition, there's representation from wider leadership across the region, have collectively agreed and alighted on the pursuit of inclusive growth as an overall strategic goal. And what does that mean? Well, in the combined authority terms and with our developing strategy, it effectively means some of the things that are on the screen here. So these are the articulation of what inclusive growth means for the board with respect to our strategic goals, effectively. And some of the ones that I would alight on with respect to the commissioning of Adult Skills Fund is things like matching skills to economic need to increase productivity and well-being. Improving the labour market, getting people into jobs, improving the skills of the labour market so that people can do higher productivity jobs, delivering growth, delivering jobs for the region is one of them. But there's obviously wider benefits in addition to that. For example, reducing inequality and improving social mobility and such things. So the delivery of the Adult Skills Fund is a crucial thing for us with respect to the support of many of these and in different ways, these strategic goals and the overall objective of delivering inclusive growth through the region. Next slide, please. And it's in that context that this strategic skills plan, or the SSP, has been carefully developed and agreed by that board in December. The SSP, which is readily available, sets out in more detail than I am saying here what those, as we call it here, vision and priorities are for, what precisely they are, and how we will be working hard and in partnership with our partners to design policy interventions, to design funding programs in order to support the delivery of those. It does that in the context of the area itself and what its profile is, and then runs into a whole set of explainers really around the role of the adult education budget, as it was called, various different funding streams into the skills and employment system, and then starts to get into the real meat and drink of how the ASF will be set up and delivered, which I will not steal Craig's thunder on, as he says much more about that later on in this session. Next slide, please. Okay, so against that backdrop, the strategic skills plan refers to these sorts of challenges that we see in the region, and again across the board, but specifically within ASF, we are trying as hard as we can to design the requirements to support tackling of these challenges. So what do we see? So generally speaking, we see lower productivity than the national average. That's not unusual for places outside of London and the southeast, but there's a marked challenge in this region. Likewise, higher economic inactivity, workplace wages that are below national and regional averages, and that real challenge about the skills based within the region too. So these are some of the challenges that are really designing some of the processes that you'll see shortly with respect to how the Adult Skills Fund is set up for commissioning. Next slide, please. Okay, so in terms of areas of focus, and you'll see this. There should be some there should be some echoes of things that I've said previously in some of this too. So this statement here, making our region more prosperous, sustainable and fairer, is, if you like, is the sort of overall vision statement that we mean when we talk about what do we want to achieve from inclusive growth, and then our programs of activity with respect to skills and employment, and specifically the Adult Skills Fund, but also other areas, in the case of transport and housing and other such things, are intended to focus on improvement with respect to these considerations. So productivity in the economy, pay and jobs, living standards, spreading opportunity. So again, that point about inclusion and social mobility, pride in one's community, and indeed empowering local leadership and community. So to design the system of devolution, so that it really engages and empowers local leadership. So I hope that's helpful. We're sort of coming at a similar thing from a different perspective, but just to sort of try to ram home some of that strategic context for you before we get into the detail of the ASF program. Next slide, please. Great. And then just to finish here, and here's a sort of, if you like, a bit more of a narrow but still big statement. So what does all that mean with respect to the economy? Principally, skills funding is an economic intervention, obviously with social benefit as well. And again, coming through in some of the discussions we've already had here around what does inclusive growth mean for the region, we think it means some of these things, and these are you will see that some of the goals and the systems that have been set up within the Adult Skills Fund are very much pregnant with the achievement of trying to deliver on these goals. I think that is probably enough from me, just in terms of sort of setting the bigger picture. I was just going to say a few other things. So the combined authority itself is a new institution. It was formally established in March 2024. So we've been able to since then bring both the sort of strategic skills planning work, but also the technical work of being able to launch the procurement, etc., to this point. And we're really excited about being able to bring some of the decision making around how the kind of provision that was previously done under the adult education budget nationally, bringing some of the decisions much more local and gearing it to the needs of our economy, to our labour market, to our communities. So we're really excited about doing this, and we're doing it here for the first time. Craig isn't doing it for the first time. He's been around this before in other regions, so we're really pleased to have his expertise and indeed from other colleagues on the call onto this. So without further ado, I'll hand over to the experts, and likewise very happy to take any further questions as and when necessary. Over to you, Craig.
Thank you, Damien. Hello, everybody. Hope you're well for a Wednesday afternoon. I'm Craig Moffat, as I've introduced myself before, as Head of Adult Skills Programmes. And just a bit more detail on my role in terms of bringing boot camps and ASF together. I'm responsible for all adult skills funding for 19 plus. So it's about developing that progression pathways for our residents of need, which I'll go into more detail in the slides. So Pippa, next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, just some information that you're probably already aware of. I mean, the ASF, formerly the AEB, Adult Education Budget, if you've been around the industry as long as me, ASB from back in the day, has progressed and developed across time, and devolution commenced in 1819 academic year. So devolution is going around the country now with future waves on board, and there's a lot of opportunities we can develop and implement and tailor the ASF for our region. That said, the Adult Skills Fund, we still have to meet our Department for Education MOU conditions. Whilst it's not a new pot of funding, it's a new funding for the EMCCA region in terms of it's under new management, as I call it. But it's there to support, but primarily regulated maths and English, which is your legal entitlements. We have to fulfill those needs for our residents, first of all, but we can support regulated qualifications. That's on the Find a Learning game, and you can deliver, training, one-to-one, distance learning, e-learning, and even hybrid and blended learning as examples of delivery models. As part of the ASF, we have our what we called community learning. It's now called tailored learning. This funding is predominantly non-regulated funding and training, and predominantly delivered by our local authorities and a few of our local colleges. This is your first steps of training and needs. So for example, it could be teaching parents to support the children with maths and English when they bring their homework home. It can support people who are really, really hard to reach, who have, got mental health challenges or personal challenges that they need to, overcome. And just by putting them on a quick training course or a longer course, it helps their progression and provides them with the confidence and the skills to move forward. And the other part of ASF is the free courses for jobs, which is the level 3 provision for 24 plus adults. Now this isn't devolved, it's delegated to EMCCA. So this means we have to follow the DFE rules and we can only fund some of the qualifications, but we do have some flexibilities when this comes online. Next slide, please, Pippa.
It's all right. There you go.
Okay, so one of the areas to look at is to focus our training provision. If you've attended any of our previous stakeholder events or you've already read the draft versions of the SSP, now the live version on our website, you'll see a lot of data in there, but there's one key area where we need to look at, and currently there are over 251 learning organisations delivering the ASF in the EMCCA region. So if you look at the little map there, down in the Isle of Wight and Cornwall and right to the north, west of England, we've got, provision being delivered, and it's probably predominantly delivered by e-learning or distance learning, or it may be even subcontractor provision, but it's really, really small cohorts of learners, around 10 learners for these out of area organisations. But you can see the darker colours for the Nottingham and Derby City within the red circle, and north of Nottingham is predominantly delivered by our local grant funded providers, colleges, and also independent learning organisations. So here is an opportunity to focus the provision and buy in the services that we need to support our communities of need. Next slide, please, Pippa. Okay, so the Strategic Skills Plan, or the SSP as we call it, it was formerly the AEB SSP, now the ASF, was developed by the Working Devolution Group prior to January 24, but the first draft was completed in 24. But the SSP has been through rigorous testing, evaluation, reviews, feedback, stakeholder engagement right from April to the end of September, where we included, learning organisations, independent and local colleges and local authorities, but also non-learning organisations such as the voluntary sector, employers, DWP, even ESFA and DFE were involved in this consultation process. So it's been through a lot of kind of hoops to be tested and tried. Now, whilst the current version is available, we will be developing the SSP moving forward. We have the inclusive growth strategy currently in development. So you'll see, future changes of the SSP. But you can see how long we have to plan, to develop policy, develop programs and develop strategies. So, we do run it through quite a robust approvals process. And it was finally approved at the December EMCCA Mayoral Combined Authority Board. Hence the reason why we've got the meeting today about launching the procurement. But we intend to do more stakeholder engagement in the future. We are open to ideas and thoughts, but we can't promise everything because the ASF has to deliver what I said before, the legal entitlements. But there are some good things we can work on, like flexibilities, and tweak and develop the priorities and look at new training provision, which I'll talk about a bit later. Next slide, please, Pippa. Okay, just a quick slide. I'll not stay long on this one, but this is our stakeholders. So we've engaged with residents. We've got the internal stakeholders such as our transport and housing, and also our constituent local authorities and our second tier local authorities. running stakeholder events, gaining their thoughts, learning organisations, as I've said before, college, FEs, FE colleges, local authorities and ITPs, but also, as I've said before, DWP and JCP involved, and also the voluntary sector, which are quite important for our region, supporting those residents and communities that are hard to reach. So, we've tried to do a bit of a collective approach, and we'll have ongoing stakeholder engagement. Next slide, please, Pippa. Okay, so throughout I think I've been here around about 7 to 8 months, and prior to me commencing at the Combined Authority, we are implementing an accountable body. So we are replicating and developing new systems in line with the DFE. So it's what I call, we are a mini DFE, as I call it, regionally. So, we are implementing, quality assurance systems. Now, this is not Ofsted. Ofsted will still monitor learning organisations on the quality provision, but we're quite interested in the learner journey. What's the IAG like, right through to the achievement and outcome and impact testing, and are they on the right programmes to move forward and progress in life? In addition, and we're also setting up MI and data systems to manage the ILR. When you submit that via the ESFA systems, we receive a version of the occupancy reports, which is by postcode and source of funding coding. So there's all those systems and processes and Power BI reports and all that data management. So quite excited about that one, actually. But also developing the ongoing relationship and contract and performance management of provision. So how can we respond to needs? How can we respond to under and over performance? Because we do have a finite pot of funding and we need to spend it wisely and efficiently. And it's about developing the programme as well. So this team will develop provision across the area. And then there's the audit and assurance. So we have to, make sure funding is compliant and we have accurate claims. So there'll be a team there to audit and assure, but we'll be working with the DFE in line with their audit and compliance processes. And then there's all the policy and procedures, the funding and performance management rules, the funding rates and formula rules that we're developing in line with the DFE's rules for now. So quite a big job to do, quite a lot of work to do, but quite exciting at the same time. Next slide, please, Pippa. Okay, so I'm not going to read every single line here, but the commissioning principles, and you'll have access to these slides following the events, and these bullet points are available in our SSP. But I just want to reiterate some of the areas we will be focusing on. So throughout the commissioning principles, including our grant provision delivered by our trusted local authorities and colleges, and then the procured route, we want to align Adult Skills Fund expenditure with the communities of need. We want the best value of provision, the best value of pound investment for our region and our local authority areas. But we will be placing learner outcomes and tracking impact as well. So, if somebody's got into a good job, have they stayed in this good job? Have they received a pay rise? Have they moved into a new role? What is the impact for that individual? It could be personal impact. It could be mental health challenges they had before where they've been reduced because they've got a stable, job that's not a 0 hours contract. So really focus on that progression. And again, making sure provision commissioned activity is aligned to other funding available. So apprenticeships, we've got the UKSPF, we've got skills boot camps, we've got the job centre and DWP programs. So let's get them working together and put some efficiency there. And let's have robust contracting and transparent processes that's fair and facilitating involvement of our key partners into the process. And we want to, like I've said before, develop deeper relationships with all types of learning organisations to understand what do you offer, what is your provision doing for us, and what can we do to support you to develop provision, and can we reduce any bureaucracy in the funding rules to support those progression routes. And we want to look at innovation as well. Like I've said before, we are supporting maths and English, but let's look at some innovative pots of funding, maybe some green and digital or artificial intelligence, or new provision that's not currently available and not funded anywhere else, but is eligible for the ASF. Next slide, please, Pippa. So the routes to commissioning, like I said before, within the SSP, it details Route 1, which is our grant allocations, which is currently delivered by our local colleges and local authority provision for the tailored and community learning provision. So this is in place so we don't destabilise provision when we implement the new ASF. It's key the grant provision is there. It's doing a really, really good job now. So we need to maintain that stability to keep that going. The other opportunity is in procurement, which is Route 2. We'll be supporting regulated learning only, including legal entitlements, but we won't be funding or supporting tailored learning, which is delivered by our local authorities and colleges. But we want to look at reducing any duplication and filling gaps in provision. And that's where we have a delivery plan, to map the provision via subject sector area level, local authority area, etc. And then throughout the implementation and, when we go live on the 1st of August this year for delivery, we want to look at innovation, responsiveness. There might be some emerging needs. We may need more bus drivers, HGV training, or we might need to, respond to something, that we don't know about at the moment. So there will be a pot of funding available to respond, and this will be via procured and grant provision. Next slide, please, Pippa. Okay, so the Route 2 then, so the procurement, I think this is what the majority of colleagues are on this call for today. So first of all, we are not procuring lots of lots. So there'll be no lot 1, lot 2, lot 3 or lot 4. We're doing this for a reason, learning from best practice. We want to have one lot for the procured route. So for example, if you train an unemployed person, get them into a job, then whilst they're in the job and you want to support them with their progression support, we don't have any problems there with that progression support. So it's one lot for all the provision, but it's focusing on 19 plus. You can deliver legal entitlements, your maths and English, and your regulated training. But we want it to complement our current grant funded provision. So we're expecting tenders, to be looking at, having that knowledge of the region and what our colleges and local authorities are delivering. But looking at unemployed, sector work-based academies, swaps, and linking to other provisions. So that progression to apprenticeship. So can we do maths and English? So a new apprentice doesn't have to do the maths whilst they're on the apprenticeship, because as an example, a link boot camp's another provision. We want to really focus on the hard to reach population and demographics, and rural is quite a big area we need to look at. It came through quite heavily through this stakeholder engagement. There's not enough provision available in rural areas, and this may be transport challenges, it may be training providers or learning organisations are not, within those areas. So let's look at those areas and focus on them. We want tenders to align to the EMCCA strategies, so the strategic skills plan, but also to our local authority strategies as well, which are available on our local authority websites. We want flexible, blended, accessible training provision. It could be weekend, evenings, like I said, the rural support as well. And then link our grant providers and procured provision together. Let's get you all in one room and let's start linking the training provision. So we've got that good, what I call line of sight into a good job. And we've got the right person on the right course. And we want to collaborate ongoing with our learning organisations to develop the ASF for EMCCA. Next slide, please, Pippa. And I've nearly finished. So the EMCCA Strategic Skills Plan, Like I said before, repeating myself in a couple of bits, but just to reiterate, focus on needs of place. It aligns to progression pathways. Let's support the growth of the regional economy. Let's try and, gain pay rises for people, but let's invest in employers so they can, increase the bottom line and earn more profit to provide the pay rises. Utilise the skills funding to promote social mobility. Like I said before, developing relationships across all training provision available. And ensure the ASF provision, works in tandem with other funding streams. Okay, and we want to evidence everything via impact. So we need good learner outcomes tracking. Next slide, please, Pippa. And then finally, last slide for me. So these are the Adult Skills Fund priorities. There's a more detailed list of sub-priorities within the Strategic Skills Plan. Go away, have a read, but these are the key areas we want to focus on. So matching skills to economic need. Let's increase that productivity. And also, our residents' well-being. We want healthy people in work, and reduce inequality and promote that social mobility. And let's allow people to achieve their maximum potential. I'm quite, passionate about that bit there, and work in line with other public funding sources to offer that coherent progression routes. And that's it for me. And I'm going to hand over you to Pippa.
Good afternoon. So I was just going to spend a few minutes describing how we will undertake our performance and how we will develop our relationships and how we will approach development of our flexibilities. So we will have in place, and we're currently developing it, a performance management structure. So that's a performance management framework. And within that framework, there will be a number of opportunities for us to review and discuss performance within your contract during the academic funding year. This will include various review points throughout the year, and we will use your ILR data, and we will create a number of quite detailed reports using Power BI, and you will have a dedicated relationship manager who will meet with you face to face on a regular basis, and they will review your performance based on the reports that we share with you. We will have a look at your contractual obligations and ensure that we are having the impact in the region that the devolved Adult Skills Fund is designed to achieve. Within those relationships, you'll have regular opportunities to have discussions with your relationship manager. The relationship manager will come out and they'll actively engage with you on various different events, so such as an open day, enrolment events that you might have in the community. Your relationship manager will also bring you into other networks within the region, such as networks that enable you to work more closely with local authorities or work more closely with the voluntary sector. And on a regular basis, we will be having events during the year where we bring all our learning organisations together to support the progression of learners through our skills system. So the idea is that a learner may start with one provider, and as they progress, they may then decide they want to move into a particular vocational area, and the training provider will have then developed effective working relations with the other learning organisations. So the referral onto and from the different learning organisations will become a much more easier process. We do recognise that learning organisations have to work really hard to engage and onboard learners. but we also want to encourage an approach of supporting learners to progress and move on to the next level of learning for them. We will be having onboarding events for all our learning organisations. So as soon as we have gone through the procurement process, we will have details of the onboarding events for you. And during that event, we will go through all the contractual obligations, all your marketing obligations, which a colleague is going to touch on slightly on the next slides. We will also have different events throughout the year where we bring people together. So, for example, we will have an event where we bring boot camp providers to be in the same room as our ASF learning organisations to make sure that there is a movement from different funding streams and funding projects from one to another. Oh, I've just gone. Right, development, sorry about that. During the first year of our devolved funding for adult skills, we are very much following the Department for Education's framework, such as the funding rules, etc. We are taking that time to gather the feedback from our various different partners across the region to make sure that we are developing flexibilities that we feel will have a greater impact. We don't just want to rush into this. We want to make informed decisions, and everything is based on evidence-based. And we want to ensure that we are able to measure the impact of those flexibilities that we introduce. But we very much feel that the year ahead and ongoing is a collaborative effort, and the relationships are very, very important to us. So you will see us out engaging with all our stakeholders, whether you are a contract learning organisation with us, or our stakeholders such as the wider local authorities. And we will be undertaking lots of activities to bring people together. And I will now hand over to Vicky Leah.
Thank you, Pippa. As Pippa introduced me, my name's Vicky Leah. I'm a Senior Procurement Officer, and I have been working on this project with Craig since autumn last year. We did a full procurement analysis of the different routes we could take to procure the provision in the EMCCA region. And as a result, we came across the Crown Commercial Services RM6348 Adult Skills and Learning Dynamic Purchasing System, which is what we're intending to use for this project. So some of you may already be signed up to the RM6348 Adult Skills and Learning Dynamic Purchasing System, but for those of you that aren't and don't know what a dynamic purchasing system or a DPS is. A DPS is just a list of pre-approved suppliers who meet some basic requirements to deliver in a certain subject area. In this case, it's adult skills training. We are intending to call off from that dynamic purchasing system using a further competition and award contracts under the DPS. This is primarily because the DPS was created in August 2024, so it's relatively new. Crown Commercial Services are an executive agency of the Cabinet Office, and they're the UK's biggest procurement organisation. So we know that they are going to be running the DPS in a kind of compliant way. We are intending to award call-off contracts under the DPS for between £100,000 and £1 million per year to successful suppliers. The call-off contracts are going to be for an initial term of 1 year with the possibility of 2 12-month extensions, so you could potentially end up with a duration of 3 years for delivery. And the total value of all awards per year will be in the region of £10 million to all suppliers. Next slide, please, Pippa. So just wanted to explain a bit about the DPS. The DPS is free for suppliers to join. It won't just be EMCCA who are using it to call off for their requirements. We are aware of other local authorities who are looking at this route to procure their own adult skills training. It's open to any public sector organisation, and anybody who's on the DPS who meets the specific criteria that relate to a specific project that somebody's doing through the DPS are eligible to bid. So only suppliers who are on the DPS will be eligible to bid for the EMCCA further competition to deliver adult skills training in the EMCCA region. So it's really important that if you do want to bid for the delivery in the EMCCA region, that you do sign up to the DPS as soon as possible. Now, the DPS is quite easy to sign up to. You only need to register as a supplier on the CCS supplier registration system, to download and read the bid pack, which is on the Adult Skills and Learning DPS website. And then you apply to join the DPS by completing a standard questionnaire, which if you've ever done any work or if you've ever done any tendering with public sector organisations, you will be familiar with the standard questionnaire. It's a backward facing questionnaire with questions about your company and your ability to deliver within a certain subject sector, and you evidence your experience, basically. CCS, they assess those applications. The DPS is completely managed by CCS, so they deal with actually adding you to the dynamic purchasing system list. But once you're on the list, you're on usually for the duration of the dynamic purchasing system, so you only have to join once. Next slide, please, Pippa. So to join the DPS, you do have to meet some minimum requirements, which are listed on this slide. I'll just go through them briefly. You need to have basic cyber essentials certification, and you need to provide evidence of that certification during the application process. You need to evidence minimum insurance coverage of 5 million each for employers' liability and public liability, and £1 million of professional indemnity insurance. You need to confirm that you supply with the CCS Supplier Code of Conduct and the Modern Slavery Act. You need to pass a financial viability and risk assessment, which I understand from CCS is a document that you complete and upload, and they then use that to assess your financial viability. And you also need a UK provider reference number from the UK Register of Learning Providers. What I haven't put on this list, which I've missed, I've just realised, is you also need a DUNS number from Dun & Bradstreet, which I would guess the majority of people working in this sector would already have, but they are also free to sign up for, and there's a link on the slide at the end which explains how you can do that if you haven't already got one. It's very, as I said, it's very important, and I can't stress this enough, that if you want to bid for work in the EMCCA region, you need to make your application for the DPS as soon as possible. You need to complete the application with as much information as possible, provide your evidence, and get that over to CCS as soon as you can, because they have obviously got to then process the applications. We are intending to publish our further competition on the 10th of March 2025. That is an indicative date, but as of right now, that's the date we're working towards. So in order to be eligible to bid for the EMCCA work, you would need to be, as of the 9th of March, sorry, next slide, please, Pippa. Sorry, I've moved on, sorry. As of the 9th of March, you need to be an awarded supplier on the DPS and have received confirmation of that from Crown Commercial Services. And you also need to have a current log on to the Crown Commercial Services e-sourcing portal. That is what we're going to use to run this further competition. You also need to have confirmed during the DPS sign up that you are able to deliver training in Derbyshire and Nottinghamshire, not just East Midlands. You need to specifically have stated you can deliver training in Derbyshire and Nottinghamshire. You need to have stated that you are able to accept individual contracts of up to and including £5 million, and you need to have indicated that you can deliver training in subjects at level 2 or below. The subjects can be any subject. Obviously, based on Craig's presentation earlier, it's being led by the strategic skills plan, but we are interested in applications from in relation to any subject area. Next slide, please, Pippa. So these are the indicative dates for procurement. I do stress indicative. You need to be, as I've just said, successfully awarded onto the Adult Skills DPS and have a CCS e-sourcing account by the 9th of March 2025 in order to be eligible to participate in the EMCCA further competition. The EMCCA further competition will be published via CCS e-sourcing on the 10th of March at midday. It closes for bids as of the 8th of April 2025 at midday. Then we will move to evaluate and moderate the bids, and the intention is to advise suppliers of whether they were successful or not on the application form, whether they were successful or not in the further competition by June 2025, and that is when contracts will start to be issued. The contracts will start from, I believe, August 2025.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so to stress, the entire project, the entire further competition will be conducted through Crown Commercial Services e-sourcing platform. You won't be able to apply using any other procurement platform or e-sender. You won't be able to apply via email. You will only be able to apply if you are a signed up member to the DPS. You won't be able to apply if you're not. You won't be able to see the further competition documents. You must be signed up to the DPS. So next slide, please, Pippa. So as I've just said, we will only accept bids via the e-sourcing portal. You will need, as part of your further competition response, to submit a capability assessment, which will be a few pass-fail questions which are specifically in relation to the EMCCA delivery. You will be required to submit a quality response, which will be questions about how you're going to deliver the training if you were successful, and you'll be required to submit a delivery plan, which will state what you can deliver in the area. You need to ensure that you've allowed sufficient time to submit your response. The system won't allow you to submit late responses, so if you miss the deadline, you won't be able to bid. Your bid won't be received, so we won't be able to assess it. There won't be, unless there's very extenuating circumstances, any extension to the submission deadline. The deadline will be the 8th of April 2025 at 12 o'clock. As I've already said, there are no late submissions, so just to be aware of that. Next slide, please, Pippa. And finally, I've provided some links to different websites where you can find more information about what I've spoke about. There's also links to the CCS help desk, which you should contact them if you have any issues in applying to the DPS. As I've already said, they deal with all the applications to the DPS. Any questions with regard to the procurement of this service, if you can email me, or you can also drop any questions in the chat. What we're going to do is we're going to compile a list of questions. No chat?
No chat.
Oh,
it is just
sorry,
by
I didn't
email.
realise. I thought there was chat, right. So yeah, you'll need to email me then. We're going to compile a list of questions, and we are going to email all of those questions with responses to the delegates. That document will also be included in the further competition pack, so it will be available to everybody who's eligible to bid for this work. So yeah, if you've got any questions, let us know. We want as many people as possible to bid for this, as many SMEs and voluntary sector and anybody else. We are open to bids from absolutely anybody for this. As long as you're signed up to the DPS, you will be able to participate. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm just going to spend a few minutes, the remainder of the time, just giving you a little bit of information about our marketing and communications and what we would expect from any successful learning organisations through our procurement. So, sorry, I'll just pop back to that. Shilpa is our normal communications officer, and there will be an email address at the end of the slide if you've got any questions about that. Okay, so we will provide all our successful contracts with a set of logos. We do ask that you use these logos. You don't modify them, you don't stretch them. And if you need any further information about branding, Shilpa is the person to contact. You will be given a marketing toolkit, which is currently in development, and that will give you an overview of how we would expect you to work with your marketing and delivering your contract. And here is just a list of our social media channels, and it's always useful for all our contract holders to follow our social channels, just so that you can keep abreast of the Combined Authorities activities. So the obligations is that you give the Combined Authority notice of announcements to allow us time to be able to respond and support you in any media releases. You use only approved descriptions in the media releases. And you invite the authority to any of your events, so things like launch events or, you know, if celebration events is always a good one. You provide case studies and suitable images with the consent from the learners. They're really, really important to us because it means that we can share those across our stakeholders, and it can often be the most encouragement that residents need to follow the journey of other residents that have been successful in their learning. You display your the logos on the homepage of all partner websites, and you display the logo on all relevant documentation and pages on your website. Anything that you are promoting using your adult skills budget with within your project that you're delivering your programme. You will receive a schedule of obligations as part of your contract, and that will give you an awful lot more detailed information. We would ask that you tag the EMCCA on your social channels for any learner success stories. And again, that is really powerful in terms of helping other residents to see that people like themselves have achieved and what results and impact and outcomes our residents have achieved through the learning. And we also ask that you attend all meetings as requested. So we will, as I've mentioned before, we will have a series of events and activities throughout the year, and it is part of your obligation that you need to attend those. And we would ask that you always send the most relevant person to those events as well. And finally, if you've got any questions about today's information that we've presented, if you could please send your emails through to Vicky. These slides will be shared with all attendees, and the recording of today's session will also be made available. Well, thank you very much for your time today. We look forward to hearing from you. We look forward to seeing any of the bids that you submit. And I think it's over to Craig for just a final message.
Thank you, Pippa. And thank you, everybody, for attending this morning's event. If you came into Nottingham and you've had a double session this afternoon, really welcome, you know, your input into all the sessions we've had. And I just wish you all the best for the future, and watch out for future updates. We have our website live now, dedicated for the Adult Skills Fund, where you can access the presentations and the strategic skills plan. And we'll also send this presentation and the recording so you can revisit any unanswered questions later. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.